Hello everybody, in this video tutorial I will try to show you a few reasons to use asset bundles in your current or future games using some live examples. I will use two side-by-side projects to better illustrate the perks of using this feature. I have to mention the fact that the project which uses the asset bundles relies on a framework which I've built, so some of the features you will see there are not readily available in Unity for you to use. They are rather custom implementations of some mechanisms which I've implemented for the said library. I will leave a link to it in the description below. Uh, we will focus more on what asset bundles can do for your games and less on technical aspects behind it. For this you can check the comprehensive Unity documentation, which I will also link below. So let's begin with the first reason to use asset bundles in your project. This is game build size. Game build size is very important, especially if you plan to distribute your game to your players on CDs, DVDs, or online platforms which have an upload limit for your game. So maybe you are building a huge game, but you are allowed only a few hundreds of megabytes or a few gigabytes to store on that platform, on those platforms, or on optical storage devices. So what do you do in this case? First, let's take a look at the project which I've prepared for this demonstration. The first one is the project without asset bundles. We'll give it a run. As you can see, there are two simple scenes, the menu and the game. The other project which uses asset bundles and a framework which I've mentioned earlier. You can see that it's roughly the same with some cool features here and there. So I prepared in advance the builds, some standalone builds from these two projects, and we'll take a look at them. This one is the game without asset bundles build for Android platform. As you can see, its size is about 30 megabytes. And the other build from the other project with asset bundles, the size is roughly 18 megabytes. So where does this difference in sizes come from? Let's just take a look back at the simple project without the asset bundles. As you can see, the folder structure of this project is rather simple. We have a folder which contains the assets which will be loaded and displayed in the menu, a folder which contains the assets for the game scene and the actual scenes themselves. Each scene has included the assets for that particular level. The same is true for the other scene. The scenes are also listed here in this list. So now when you press the build button, Unity will look for the scenes in this list, and it will collect, for each scene in this list, will collect all the assets you have included, also their dependencies from the assets in this list and their dependencies, and will include them in the build game. This could potentially result in huge game build sizes if your game contains lots of assets and especially high quality ones. On the other hand, the other project uses only one scene, as you can also see here, but when you run it, the game looks roughly the same. How does it manage this thing? Well, the short answer is it loads dynamically at runtime all the assets needed for that particular level. Where does it load from those assets? Well, it loads them from asset bundles. So what are asset bundles anyway? Asset bundles are a Unity concept and are basically archive files which contain game assets such as models, textures, videos, materials, so on and so forth. And at runtime, the game will access those assets from the asset bundles and will load them into game scene. So by using asset bundles, you are basically splitting your game into components. On one side you will have the compiled game code, and some additional small resources such as splash screens. And on the other side, you will have the big assets of your game, such as models, textures, and so on, packed into files named asset bundles. Here we can see the actual asset bundles for this project, which, as I told you, there are some simple archive files containing the assets needed to display these two scenes. We will see shortly. So they are basically the contents in this scene and in this scene are dynamically loaded from those files, those asset bundles I've shown you earlier. Now you may ask, how does that make my game build smaller? Well, it's actually really simple. When you build the game from this menu, only a bare minimum of resources and the code are included with the game build. Usually asset bundles are not included in the build, so the asset bundles will have to find another way to reach your player devices. This is accomplished by using a mechanism which will upload the asset bundles from your computer to a publicly available server so that the client devices can connect to that server and download the asset bundles locally. The burden of implementing this system will fall to you, as Unity does not provide out-of-the-box such solutions, or you could alternatively use a framework which already implements this system for you, such as Dreambit bundles. Now, on to the second reason why asset bundles are useful for your game: delivering content updates and patches to your game clients. Spoiler alert, is more difficult without using asset bundles in your game, and I'll show you why. Now, let's presume we want to make some changes to the main menu scene. We'll first try out this by using the without asset bundles procedure. Let's just say we want to rescale the props in our menu. So in order for these changes to reach your clients, you will have to rebuild the entire game. After rebuilding the entire game, you will probably have to upload it to the platform which you use for selling your game, for distributing it. This could take time to get your game approved, or depending on your connection, it could take time to upload the actual game to that platform. So it's not ideal. Let's see if these changes reach the build player. They have. Now, how we can do this thing simpler without needing to re-upload the entire game to the digital platform we use to distribute it. Let's just see the asset bundle method. The method involving asset bundles is rather simpler because it does not involve you rebuilding the entire game, uploading it to a digital platform. It only involves rebuilding the asset bundles which contain the assets you have changed and uploading them to our server. The next time your customers will open their game, the new content will be automatically delivered to their devices. Again, if you are using a framework which does this for you, or you provide your own implementation for this patching mechanism. So let's just do what we did earlier. We will rescale the props from the main menu to a scale of, I don't know, 3 on all axes. Next step is to use this as this framework, or you could use your own. I'll just rebuild the asset bundles and upload them to the server to be accessible for the client side. Now let's see if those changes have reached our game without rebuilding it. Let's presume we are starting a game on the client device. We'll expect to see the newly built asset bundles being downloaded and the content in the main menu changed. bundles I've downloaded, and as you can see, the props are rescaled. Now for the last reason why you should consider using asset bundles in your games, it is good practice. It is used throughout the entire gaming industry. How many times have you downloaded mobile games and the first thing you saw when you first ran the game was a progress bar which downloaded even more content? Uh, it uses the same asset bundling concept, even though maybe the game was built using another 3D engine, not necessarily Unity 3D. I believe almost major game engines have this concept of separating the game assets into archive files, which can be later be downloaded on the client side. Or you can take a look at the games installed on your Windows machines. Along binary files, configs, and others, you will see some rather huge files with proprietary extensions, which are also basically archives, as I've said about the asset bundles, and those archives will be decompressed and their contents extracted at runtime. The same asset bundling mechanism. So it's best to use it. Those being said, I hope this tutorial was helpful for you, and if you have further questions, I will be happy to answer them. Thank you.